All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, this is Keith Stone with the National Weather Service in Peachtree City. This is a special weather briefing for the potential for winter weather this upcoming weekend, and we'll try and get into some of the details of that potential through this briefing. All right, so main points and headlines with this: the potential for what we're calling an impactful snowfall exists across parts of Georgia this Friday night into Saturday. Saturday being the main emphasis, but starting as early as Friday night. Being that we are still a couple days out, there is a lot of uncertainty with regard to where everything will set up. But we do have confidence in at least a low to a moderate capacity that measurable and impactful snow will occur, especially east of I-75 and I-85. And we'll get into the details of that throughout this presentation. However, the one main point here, similar to last January 2021, wherever it snows, and that is our biggest challenge, where it will snow, it will cause travel issues given the environmental conditions. And I've got some stuff later on talking about that. Snow could begin in North Georgia mountains late Friday evening, but the primary window for most of the region, the risk region, begins after midnight Friday through Saturday afternoon. So that's your primary time frame. It looks like Friday afternoon we should be okay. There could be some showers around, but temperatures at that point are going to be in the mid-30s, and we're not expecting temps to drop until we get into the Friday night period. The other aspect of this, and I'm going to have Sid cover this, is the extended period of extreme cold that will be following this storm system through the rest of the weekend and into Monday. And that in of itself will cause other issues that we will also discuss. So if you looked at our social media page, we did throw out some winter weather scenarios that involved a surface low Gulf and where it developed and where it took off. But when we start diving into the differences in the models, it really revolves around the upper low path, or for the meteorologist, the 700 millibar low. And when we took a deep dive into the various model solutions and why some had snow further east and why it was further west, it all revolved around where this low actually tracks. And so when we deep dived into that, we can break them down into basically three scenarios. So I'll start with scenario one, and that is a more Carolinas focused snowfall. The upper low will track basically across Tennessee. It will clip northeast Georgia and then track maybe down towards Augusta and then down off the southeast South Carolina coast. In that scenario, the upper low maybe touches the North Georgia mountains, and the snow impacts will be confined to the region in far eastern Georgia, maybe along the northeastern border and the northeast Georgia mountains, with not a lot of snow potential elsewhere. Scenario 2 and Scenario 3 is where things get tricky for us in Georgia. Scenario 2 basically takes that low from central Tennessee southeast across Georgia, essentially the I-75, I-16 corridor path, if that low takes that track or the center of the low. A path on that path will bring increased snow chances westward, and this would be significant impacts from Dalton to Covington to Statesboro line, and light snow possible all the way back into the metro to the I-75 corridor in the scenario 2. Scenario 3, which is a further west and a stronger upper low solution, brings significant snow potential all the way west through the metro, all the way to the Georgia-Alabama state line. And it would include northwest Georgia, basically southeastward towards Savannah. And I got some slides talking about those, but those are the three scenarios, and we range everything from a significant snow potential in scenario 3 to very limited into the northeast Georgia in scenario 1, and everything in between is kind of what we're looking at this point. So here is scenario 1. I'm going to let it load on your end, wait for everybody to catch up. Scenario 1 is the more Carolina focus, and this is an actual model solution where that upper low tracks along that path that I'm showing. And what you're looking at is the moisture, the relative humidity at that level. And deeper blues and purples are high relative humidity. The browns are dry air. And what you'll notice is that a lot of the moisture and a lot of the higher relative humidity stays relatively confined in the Carolinas and Virginia. And so obviously the snow threat would be confined where that relative humidity is highest. The other thing I want you to take note is you'll notice this brown region when the loop starts going. It's much further north, up over and across the metro and even North Georgia. Obviously, that dry air is going to limit where the snow potential sets up. So when we look at the snow probabilities associated with a path that looks like that, this is what you get on the right-hand side. And you can see where snow probabilities greater than an inch are confined to far northeast Georgia and far north Georgia. There's a little bit of snow potential that does creep into northwest Georgia, and you can see that maybe a little bit on that on the left-hand side. There's a little bit of moisture that wraps around the system into northwest Georgia. And so we'll have to watch that closely if that scenario plays out. But in this scenario, a lot of the threat is confined to far northeast, far north, maybe a little bit in northwest, with snow potential lessening as you head south and further south and east. Okay, so scenario 2 from that same slide. This is a path that's sort of in between the two, but it takes the upper low basically along a 75 high 16 path down towards Savannah. Notice on the left-hand side, a lot more moisture runs and trains across the state as that low tracks south and east. With that, obviously, the snow potential goes up. And so here on the right-hand side are the snow probabilities greater than 1 inch in the scenario you see to your left. And we actually get everything in orange to the yellows are above 50% snow probabilities, which get all the way back to maybe the North Metro, maybe the Eastern Metro, get into that 50% probability range of greater than 1 inch of snow, with far Eastern Georgia most certainly above at least 1 inch. And the probability is near 100%, meaning all of the ensemble members say you're most likely going to get an inch in the far eastern counties of Georgia and northeast Georgia. There is a little bit more probability a little further west. You can get back into, say, a Carrollton to Peachtree City to maybe Vidalia line is where the snow probabilities get back to on this scenario. And then scenario number 3, which is probably the most significant snow for the state as a statewide, including the metro, would be this scenario where the snow or the upper low takes a more western track, maybe tracks from Huntsville to, say, Albany, and then heads down towards Brunswick. If the upper low takes that track, you'll notice a lot more moisture wrapping into the state. And as a result, we end up with a lot more snow a lot further west. And so because of that, you've got a scenario here on the right-hand side with your snow probabilities. We see snow probabilities of 50% or greater all the way back to the Alabama state line. In fact, your probabilities in this scenario run 60 to 80% all the way back to the Alabama Georgia state line up into northwest Georgia, with the 100% probability actually dipping back all the way almost to the northeast metro, includes all of northeast Georgia, and then extends out on I-20. So that scenario presents the biggest snow challenge for us if that one plays out. We don't have a good feel right now for which one of these 3 because there's such subtle differences in how the models are evolving. It's about split 1/3 between the different models, 1/3 for each scenario. And we're waiting to see if we can pick out any sort of trend in one direction or another on which one may play out. But just want to give you these 3 possibilities that we're looking at least right now. When we look at this in terms of overall probability, this is the overall based on all 3 scenarios that I just gave you of at least a 1/2 inch or 1 inch of snow. So if you're in an area, say from, let's say Gainesville south to maybe Covington to maybe Milledgeville down towards Statesboro, your probabilities of at least 1/2 inch of snow are pretty high, maybe pushing that 50% threshold, maybe 40 to 50% and above. And so that's the area, obviously, we would have greatest confidence of at least an impactful snow eastward. When we extend back to the west, you can see the probabilities are a little bit lower, but they're a lot higher depending on which of the scenarios plays out. So, like I said, it's about a 1/3 split between the different scenarios, with highest confidence in eastern Georgia. And the reason why you're seeing these probabilities this high, given what I just showed you, is that scenario 2 and scenario 3 would be the ones that hit eastern and northeastern Georgia the hardest with any snowfall. So you're looking at about a 2/3 of the members actually hitting eastern Georgia with snow. And so you're seeing about a 66% to 70% chance of at least 1 inch of snow in that region. So again, confidence is highest there, but we're watching for trends to the west. Okay, so in terms of severity index, we've shown this in the past, and this is just a time lapse of the severity index starting, or the probability of at least minor weather impacts. Again, taking in all of those scenarios starting Friday through Saturday, and you can see they maximize on Saturday across East Central. If I take a step forward, this is the probability of at least moderate winter impacts. And again, they do extend all the way back into northwestern Georgia of at least 10 to maybe 20% chance. Again, I'm counting for the possibility that snow plays out. If the snow plays out, the impacts are going to be significant. And we'll talk about the travel impacts in a minute. So when I stop and I zoom the probability of at least winter weather impacts this weekend, our confidence is highest in the areas in red and eastward. We're sort of in that medium range in the orange and the yellow. And then we're low to maybe medium on the areas in lighter blue. And it's solely dependent on where that low tracks. The areas in blue, and even to somewhat degree in the first color of yellow, totally dependent on where the upper low tracks. A further east track and not a whole lot happens there. Further, just a slightly west shift, and we get impacts in those zones. So we'll have to watch that. So the things in question: how far west the snow will occur, and the precise location and amount of any snow that we do get. So what can you do? At least now, about 72 hours out, begin to consider or prepare for possible travel impacts this weekend. And then obviously ensure your family has multiple days of food and medication, under the assumption that you do get snow, because the roads will probably be impacted by even low amounts of snow. So we do want to at least give that tidbit to folks to begin preparing. So what do we mean by impactful snow? The lighter, fluffier snow that we're expecting with this in this very cold environment tends to adhere to the roads much quicker. Temperatures on Saturday are expected to be in the 20s and falling through the day. So even snow under 1 inch will cause travel problems. And pictures on the right-hand side are from last January, where we saw less than or up to 1 inch of snow do exactly that. And that's kind of what we're expecting with this event, given the atmosphere that's coming in. So we don't want to necessarily focus on snow amounts per se. We do, but even the lighter amounts may cause issues going into the weekend. So just prepare for that. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Sid, and I'm going to let him talk about the cold temperatures, and then we'll swing back to a little bit more on the snow.
Thanks, Keith. So what we're seeing on this graph, on this table here, is we have 3 hourly temperatures going from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, pretty much noon Friday through noon Monday. And we have a wide swath here where temperatures are going to be below freezing. This colder air is going to arrive late Friday into Saturday, and it's going to remain all the way through the weekend. So especially Saturday night into Sunday morning, we could see low temperatures as cold as the single digits and into the low teens. And the wind chills, as we'll show in the next couple of slides, are going to be even lower and could even be lead to some dangerous wind chills as well. And a couple of things that are important to note, even across our area that doesn't see snow, is the prolonged below freezing temperatures could lead to an extended threat for pipe bursts and cold related illnesses, especially people that are outside during this for a long time. Always be mindful of people and pets. And of course, as Keith alluded to earlier, by the time the snow is any snow is expected to arrive, the ground temperatures are going to be below freezing across the majority of our area, and that's going to allow for this snow to very quickly, nearly instantly, stick onto the roads. So here's a look at our temperatures Saturday morning. Going to be mostly in the 20s across the area, with wind chills down into the pretty much down into the single digits across North Georgia, and then down into the teens in Central Georgia. The one that's going to be more significant is going to be Sunday morning. And this, we have a caveat here that we'd like to mention as well, is that when in the areas that receive snow, we could actually cause these temperatures to be lower in these locations. But our lows that morning are expected to be in the single digits up in the mountains, and then down into the teens elsewhere across our forecast area. But with our cold temperatures and our wind chills, we are currently looking at wind chills no higher than about 5 across our area, and could get as low as 10 below or 15 below up in the highest elevations of the far northeast. So this could pose a significant hazard for anyone outside, anyone that would have any reason to be outside during that time. And then we'll be slow to warm up on Monday. So even Monday morning, we'll still be down into the teens and 20s with some single digits remaining. Wind chills will still be very unpleasant that morning, not quite as low as Sunday morning. So add all that up, and we are going to have a long stretch of sub-freezing temperatures, especially in these areas kind of north of the I-20 and I-85 corridor, where it's possible that we could have areas that remain below freezing for up to 60 to as much as 80 consecutive hours. In central Georgia, you may have the numbers a bit lower, down to about 35 to 55 hours. However, it's worth noting in those areas that while temperatures may briefly rise above freezing, it's only expected to be in about the mid-30s. So this would, in any case, limit the melting of any snow that occurs Friday night into Saturday. There's not going to be much reduction of that snow, even through the day on Sunday. So these prolonged below freezing temperatures, once again, not only could they lead to prolonged road hazards, but once again, extend the threat for pipe bursts and cold-related illnesses. And one more thing they'll also have an impact on is with the deep cold air mass in place, not just at the surface, but deep in the atmosphere. It's also going to increase our ratio for our snow ratios. So how much liquid water would translate to how much snow, and the ratio by which how much snow we would get out of equivalent liquid precipitation. And I'll hand it back over to Keith to talk about that right now.
All right. Thanks, Sid. In fact, we just posted on our social media a graphic talking about that. It's critical. It's important to say that because on the next slide, I'll show you an example of what I mean by that. And the snow ratio is the amount of liquid that is converted into snow. And in this environment that we're going into this weekend, it's only going to take, it's a 20-to-1 ratio is essentially what we're looking at. So in that scenario, a half an inch of liquid equates to actually 10 inches of snow, whereas during a more moist environment, it ends up being only 2 inches of snow. So it's only going to take a little bit of moisture and a little bit of what we'll call rainfall equivalent or water equivalent to actually build up snow. to give you an example of that, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I need you to be cautious about using and viewing snow totals from social media, which are probably going to start flying and probably already have started flying, especially in the Carolinas where there's a more significant snow impact expected. But what you're looking at on the left-hand side is the one model, same model run, using 10-to-1 snow ratio versus what would be a realistic snow ratio. And it's almost double because we're looking at an almost 20-to-1 snow ratio for this particular event. And I wouldn't pay attention to the where and the what. What I'm showing you is, like up in Northwest Georgia, you notice there is a doubling of the actual snow total. Same model, two different snow ratios applied. You get a very different snow total. And so, again, I bring it up because I need you to just be cautious using snow totals on social media and what you hear, because we're applying a 20-to-1 ratio in this case. So what you see on the internet may be very different than what we're actually forecasting and what may actually occur.
Another thing that is worth keeping in mind about a snow ratio this high is it introduces a higher amount of variability into the forecast. So a tenth of an inch of liquid water could create a difference of 2 inches of snow in this case. So that makes the forecast even more volatile in this situation, just on how much moisture is going to be available.
Essentially, our errors are magnified by a factor of 20 in forecasting QPF. So to summarize that, circling back, the potential for an impactful snow does exist across Georgia this Friday and Saturday. We're still days out. If anything, we would be looking at watches maybe tomorrow is what we're thinking in here. But we'll see how things trend. We could trend completely into the dry area, or we could trend into the snow area. We just have to see how the models evolve over the next 24 hours. One thing we are certain is that wherever it does snow, it will cause travel issues, given the environment. Snow begins maybe late Friday night, maybe as early as in the evening, but primary window is after midnight through Saturday. And then, as Sid mentioned, the extreme period of cold that comes with this system through the rest of the weekend and into Monday. We are planning on doing an additional briefing tomorrow. We'll have hopefully more updates for you. We'll send an email out with the link to the webinar as well. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.